Think about the last time you couldn't stop thinking about someone. It wasn't because they were available 24/7. It was because something felt unfinished, unresolved, slightly out of reach. The same rule applies to her. If you give her complete access too quickly, her mind relaxes. If you create just enough space, tension grows. And tension is what keeps you replaying in her head. Most men eliminate that tension without realizing it. They try too hard. They explain too much. They overstay. In this video, I'm going to break down 7 ways to get a woman to constantly think about you by mastering impression, curiosity, emotion, and controlled absence. Now understand something. This isn't about playing games. It's about understanding value and how female psychology responds to it. You don't need to do more. You need to do it right. If you want to understand how women actually think, not what they say, but what moves them, make sure you like this video and subscribe. Let's start with the one thing most men underestimate: the impression you leave the very first time she experiences you. Number 1, leave a good impression. You never get a second first impression. I know you've heard that before, but most men hear it as a cliché. Women experience it as chemistry. The first time she meets you, her brain isn't running a spreadsheet. It's running a scan. How do you carry yourself? How do you smell? How does your voice land in the room? Are you grounded or slightly chaotic? Her nervous system decides before her logic does. Men underestimate how powerful sensory imprinting is. The brain attaches memory to smell, tone, posture, micro-expressions. That means she may not remember every word you said, but she will remember how it felt standing next to you. She will remember whether your presence made her lean in or subtly pull back. And no, this is not just about wearing a nice shirt or an expensive watch. It's about the energy you bring into her space. Do you walk in like you belong there? Or like you're hoping to be approved? I once hugged a man who looked great on paper. Sharp outfit, confident smile. But the moment he leaned in, there was a sharp, unpleasant scent. Instantly, my body recoiled. And do you know what happened next? Nothing else about him mattered. My brain attached that discomfort to his identity. Sensory memory outlives logic. If she associates you with tension, awkwardness, or neglect, that becomes your imprint. If she associates you with calm, composure, and subtle masculine certainty, that becomes your anchor in her mind. This is why your grooming, your posture, and your vocal tone are not surface-level details. They are psychological entry points. When you speak slowly and clearly, you signal control. When you smell clean and distinct, you create a lingering reminder. When your body language is open but contained, you communicate safety without neediness. And here's the truth most men don't want to hear. If she remembers you the wrong way, she will remember you consistently the wrong way. First impressions don't just determine whether she sees you again. They determine how she files you in her subconscious. High value, neutral, or forgettable. But understand something. A strong impression only holds her attention for a moment. It makes her look back once. If you want her to think about you when you're not there, you have to give her something incomplete, something unresolved. That's where most men fail next. Number 2, leave her wanting more. Most men sabotage themselves in the first hour. You meet her. You're excited. You want her to like you. So you start talking about your childhood, your ambitions, your last relationship, your 5-year plan. By the end of the night, she knows everything. And here's what you don't realize. When there's nothing left to discover, there's nothing left to anticipate. Dopamine, the chemical that fuels desire, is not triggered by having everything. It's triggered by almost having it. Anticipation creates more psychological tension than completion ever will. That's why trailers are sometimes more exciting than the movie. That's why the almost text back keeps people hooked. When you reveal your entire story too quickly, you remove the curiosity gap. Her brain has no unfinished loop to close, no reason to replay the conversation, no mental breadcrumb to follow. But when you leave certain pieces unsaid, not by being evasive, but by being selective, something interesting happens. Her mind starts filling in the blanks. She wonders what you didn't say. She replays your words. She tries to decode you. That is when you enter her internal dialogue. Understand this clearly. Mystery is not silence. It's controlled access. You don't have to disappear mid-sentence. You don't have to act cold. You simply don't hand her your entire emotional resume on the first encounter. You answer fully, but not exhaustively. You share, but not in a way that empties you. When she says, "Tell me more about that," and you smile slightly and pivot the conversation with confidence, you create anticipation. You signal depth without overexposure, and anticipation is addictive. When she goes home and thinks, "There's something about him I haven't figured out yet," that thought lingers. Curiosity is a hook that keeps pulling long after the conversation ends. But let me sharpen this for you. Selective mystery only works if there's substance behind it. If there's nothing there, no direction, no character, no depth, then withholding information just makes you vague. Curiosity must be backed by value, because once she leans in, she needs to find something worth discovering, and that brings us to the next layer. Number 3, be financially stable. Notice I did not say be rich. There's a difference between flashing money and radiating stability. One is performance, the other is power. Women are incredibly perceptive when it comes to grounded confidence. You don't have to show her your bank account. You don't have to mention your income. In fact, the more you talk about money, the more it signals insecurity. Financial stability is not about numbers. It's about nervous system calm. A man who has his life in order speaks differently. He moves differently. He makes decisions without hesitation. He doesn't panic over small expenses. He doesn't flinch when life throws friction at him. That steadiness leaks into everything. The way he plans dates, the way he talks about work, the way he handles unexpected problems. And women read that. At a biological level, security matters. Not because women are calculating, but because stability signals safety. Safety signals long-term potential, and long-term potential lowers her guard. If you are financially chaotic, constantly complaining about money, job hopping without direction, or subtly asking her to compensate for your lack of structure, she feels it. Even if she doesn't articulate it, her body registers uncertainty, and uncertainty kills attraction. A man who is unstable radiates instability. It shows up in rushed decisions, reactive emotions, fragile ego. You cannot compartmentalize chaos. It seeps out. But when you're grounded, when your finances, career direction, and lifestyle are aligned, your confidence isn't loud, it's quiet. It doesn't beg to be noticed. It simply exists. And that quiet confidence is magnetic. Here's the truth you need to accept. You cannot fake grounded confidence. You can imitate luxury. You can rent status. But you cannot fake the internal calm that comes from knowing you can handle your own life. And when she senses that you can handle your own life, she starts imagining what it would feel like to stand next to you. However, don't misunderstand this. Money alone does not make her think about you all day. Stability earns respect. It opens the door. But it doesn't create obsession. Obsession is emotional. And if you want her replaying you in her mind, you have to touch something deeper than logic. Number 4, create an emotional connection. This is where most men completely miss the mark. They think attraction is about impressing her, complimenting her, showing dominance, moving fast, getting what they want before someone else does. But if she's even moderately attractive, she receives attention constantly. Men tell her she's beautiful. Men buy her drinks. Men try to impress her with status, jokes, charm. Attention is not rare in her world. Depth is. When you sit across from her and actually listen, not waiting for your turn to speak, not steering the conversation back to yourself, something shifts. You start noticing the micro-expressions when she talks about her family, the slight pause when she mentions stress, the change in tone when she references something that genuinely matters to her. Most men don't catch those signals. They're too busy performing. But when you respond to what she's really feeling, not just what she's saying, you create psychological intimacy. Imagine this. 5 men tell her she looks stunning tonight. She smiles politely. She's heard it before. 1 man says, "You look tired. Long week?" Not as a criticism, as an observation layered with concern. That man stands out because he made her feel seen. Empathy builds attachment. When she feels emotionally understood, her nervous system relaxes. Her guard lowers. And once a woman feels safe expressing something vulnerable, she associates that relief with you. That association is powerful. She remembers the man who made her feel emotionally safe far longer than the man who made her laugh for an hour. Let me make this clear. Attention is common. Emotional safety is rare. When she starts sharing deeper parts of herself, her fears, her frustrations, her ambitions, and you hold that space without judgment or rushing to fix her, you position yourself differently in her mind. Not as entertainment, not as validation, but as someone significant. And significance lingers. However, there is a subtle danger here. If you become too predictable, too consistently available, too safe in a passive way, you risk being categorized as comfortable rather than compelling. Comfort keeps you around. Tension keeps you in her thoughts. So yes, create emotional connection. Make her feel understood. But don't lose the edge that keeps her slightly leaning forward. Because the moment she feels she has you fully mapped out, the emotional spark starts to flatten. And that's where the next shift becomes critical. Number 5, do not be predictable. The female brain is wired to respond to novelty. Not chaos, not instability, novelty. When every interaction with you follows the same script, same time you call, same tone, same type of date, same predictable reactions, her nervous system relaxes in a way that lowers tension, and lowered tension lowers mental replay. Predictability feels safe, but it rarely feels electric. Think about why certain creators grow rapidly online. It's not because they are consistent in personality. It's because they are creatively unpredictable. The audience doesn't know exactly what's coming next, so they keep watching. The same principle applies to attraction. If she knows exactly how you'll respond to every message, if she can forecast your behavior with perfect accuracy, your psychological footprint shrinks. You become stable background noise instead of a stimulating presence, and stimulation is what keeps you in her thoughts. This doesn't mean you play games or manufacture drama. It means you occasionally disrupt the pattern. If you usually text at night, send a confident midday message once in a while. If you usually plan formal dinners, suggest something spontaneous. If she expects a certain reaction, respond with calm composure instead. That subtle unpredictability triggers what psychologists call an intermittent reward pattern. When rewards are not perfectly consistent, the brain pays more attention. It leans in, it anticipates, and anticipation is addictive. Here's the hard truth. When she can predict you, she can replace you. If you fit neatly into a category she already understands, your novelty expires. But when there is just enough variation to keep her curious, you remain mentally stimulating. However, unpredictability alone is not enough. If it's surface level, random without depth, it becomes noise. What truly lingers is the sense that there's more to you than she can fully access. And that leads us to something deeper than surprise. It leads to mystery. Number 6, build the mystery. Mystery does not mean being cold. It does not mean ignoring her. And it definitely does not mean acting emotionally unavailable. Mystery is controlled transparency. Most men overshare because they're trying to prove value. They think if she sees everything, their ambition, their pain, their achievements, their struggles, she'll be convinced faster. But when you hand over the full blueprint of who you are too early, you eliminate intrigue. Human beings are wired to fill in missing information. When there's a gap, the mind rushes to complete it. And when a woman doesn't have full access to every detail about you, she starts projecting. She imagines. She speculates. She creates narratives. And here's what you need to understand. Her imagination will often build a more compelling version of you than your resume ever could. When you operate on a need-to-know basis, you're not hiding. You're pacing disclosure. You answer questions. You engage fully. But you don't unload everything at once. You allow layers to unfold gradually. That gradual unfolding creates psychological investment. She starts thinking, there's more here. She senses depth she hasn't reached yet. And the more she senses there's something beneath the surface, the more her mind circles back trying to decode it. The less she knows, the more she imagines. And imagination is far more powerful than information. But this only works if the mystery is backed by substance. If there is no depth, mystery becomes emptiness. If there is no direction in your life, mystery becomes confusion. Real mystery comes from having a full life that doesn't revolve around her. Goals she hasn't fully seen. Interests she hasn't fully explored. Dimensions she haven't revealed yet. When she realizes she cannot completely map you, she stays engaged. Because mapping something gives the brain closure. And closure reduces obsession. Yet even mystery is not the final lever. There is one principle that amplifies everything we've discussed. Impression, curiosity, stability, emotion, novelty, mystery. And it changes how she values you entirely. Number 7. Make yourself scarce. This is the principle that separates the man she likes from the man she can't stop thinking about. Most men believe consistency means constant availability. They respond instantly. They answer every call. They rearrange their schedule at the slightest hint of attention. They become accessible on demand. And accessibility kills tension. When you are always there, she never has to wonder. She never has to miss you. She never has to imagine you living a life outside of her. Scarcity increases perceived value. Not because women are calculating, but because the brain assigns importance to what is limited. When something is abundant, the mind relaxes. When something is limited, the mind focuses. If you call her 3 times a day, text her good morning, good afternoon, good night, and constantly check in, you remove the psychological space where longing grows. Longing requires absence. Now let's be clear. This does not apply the same way inside a deeply established, secure relationship. In that context, sudden distance can create suspicion instead of desire. But when you are building attraction, when she is still deciding how much space you occupy in her life, your availability communicates your value. If you drop everything to be at her disposal, you signal that your world revolves around her. And when a woman senses that she is your only source of excitement, the dynamic shifts. She stops leaning forward. However, when she knows you have things to do, places to be, ambitions to pursue, and that you are choosing to make time for her rather than existing solely for her, the frame changes. You are not chasing her attention. You are offering access. And access feels different. Instead of calling 3 times a day, you call once, with intention. Instead of being present 24/7, you show up fully when you do. Then you return to your world. Even if your schedule is light, carry yourself like a man whose life is full. Because if you are always there, she never has to miss you. And when she misses you, something powerful happens. Her mind starts replaying moments, reevaluating your words, wondering what you're doing, who you're with. Scarcity creates mental replay. She values what she can lose. Now step back and look at the pattern. First, you leave an imprint. Then you create curiosity. You build stability. You form emotional depth. You add novelty. You layer in mystery. And finally, you introduce scarcity. This is not manipulation. It's structure. You are not trying to control her mind. You are understanding how it works. A powerful impression makes her notice you. Curiosity makes her lean in. Stability earns respect. Emotional connection creates attachment. Novelty keeps her stimulated. Mystery keeps her guessing. Scarcity makes her value your presence. When these elements align, you stop chasing attention. You create presence. And presence lingers. The man who is always available, fully exposed, predictable, and emotionally shallow might get temporary validation. But the man who understands tension, pacing, depth, and value, he gets remembered. If this message resonates with you, make sure you subscribe. This channel is for men who are ready to understand women from a strategic psychological lens, not from fantasy, not from guesswork. Comment below and tell me honestly, which one of these 7 are you missing right now? And share this with a man who keeps wondering why she never thinks about him when he's gone. Because she doesn't think about the man who tries the hardest. She thinks about the man who stays in her mind, even after he leaves the room.